Trump's lawyer, John Lauro, just caught Jack Smith in the worst web. This is going to reverse a lot of Jack Smith's shenanigans at the Supreme Court. But first, welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots all hang out. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, of course. Get us to 300,000. Here's from the Hill. Ex-White House lawyer says Supreme Court could rule 9-0 in possible Trump 14th Amendment case. The former White House lawyer, Ty Cobb, predicted Tuesday that the U.S. Supreme Court could rule 9-0 in favor of former President Trump in a potential appeal of the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling that would kick Trump off the state's ballot. Quote, I think the case will be handled quickly. I think it could be 9-0 in the Supreme Court for Trump, Cobb said in an interview on CNN, adding later, I do believe it could be 9-0 because I think the law is clear. He has more reasons than that coming up. The Colorado Supreme Court issued a ruling Tuesday that Trump should not appear on Colorado's ballot due to his alleged role in the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. Citing the 14th Amendment insurrection clause, the 4-3 ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court argued Trump engaged in an insurrection by promoting false claims of election fraud and encouraging supporters to go to the Capitol on January 6th. Big deal, right? The Colorado Supreme Court ruled the office of the president falls under the insurrection clause, and that's where they have a problem, which states that those who previously took oaths to support the Constitution as a, quote, member of Congress, I want you to notice on all these lists that nowhere in there is the presidency. As a member of Congress, officer of the United States, member of any state legislature, or an executive or judicial officer of any state cannot engage in a rebellion against it. One small problem, John Roberts. This has already been established by the Supreme Court. Quote, the real key issue in this case is Trump an officer in the Supreme Court in the context in which that term is used in Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, Cobb said. And quote, in 2010, Chief Justice John Roberts explained in Free Enterprise that people don't vote for officers of the United States. Therefore, Trump is not on that list. And most believe that the 14th Amendment intended to not include the president for that very reason. But now let's get to the Jack Smith reversal. Trump's lawyers asked Supreme Court to stay out of dispute on whether he is immune from prosecution. Washington AP, lawyers for former President Donald Trump, that's the John Lauro in the picture, they urged the U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday to stand down from a dispute over whether he can be prosecuted on charges he plotted to overturn the 2020 election results. Special counsel Jack Smith's team last week urged the nation's high court to take up and quickly consider Trump's claims that he enjoys immunity from prosecution as a former president. The unusual request for a speedy ruling seemed designed to prevent any delays that could postpone the trial of the 2024 Republican presidential primary frontrunner, currently set to begin March 4th until after next year's presidential election. Remember, Trump's strategy is to delay is to win. But Trump's lawyers told the Supreme Court that there was no reason for them to take up the matter now, especially because a lower appeals court in Washington is already considering the same question and has scheduled arguments for January 9th. So this is Jack Smith trying to leapfrog a lower court. Quote, importance does not automatically necessitate speed. If anything, the opposite is usually true. Novel, complex, sensitive, and historic issues, such as the existence of presidential immunity from criminal prosecution of official acts, call for more careful deliberation, not less, Trump's lawyers wrote. This appeal presents momentous historic questions. An erroneous denial of a claim of presidential immunity from criminal prosecution unquestionably warrants the Supreme Court's review, the lawyers wrote, but they added, that does not mean that the court should take, quote, the case before the lower courts complete their review. So the Trump team's trying to push it back down to get it reviewed by the Washington court. That'll create too much time, which is why Jack Smith pushed it up, proving this is political, proving he said that he would treat Trump like any other person under the law. And here he's expediting it, proving that this is not a normal case and that they're deliberately, specifically, uniquely prosecuting Trump. The Supreme Court will be deciding this quickly whether if they will see it or not. Look for them to reject this one and push it back down to the lower courts because they don't want to be pushed around by some little geek like Jack Smith. Again, let me know what you guys think. Will the Supreme Court hear this one, or will they push it back down to the lower courts? Don't you worry, the Supreme Court will hear this eventually, but it ought to be after the election in 2024. I'm Doug in Exile.